Robert Kiyosaki, welcome to Dad Saves America.
I tell you that Dad Save America is a perfect name for my brand too, right?
That's right.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I am so excited. We have talked about having you on the show for a long time,
Thank you.
and our time is limited, so there's so much more that we could talk about together than we have time for.
Sure.
I want to start with the present because you are an icon of macro financial literacy, and this is a very weird time, it feels like. So
Okay.
how do you understand what's happening in the economy and what we as parents and as homeowners should be preparing for and thinking about?
Well, without getting political, Donald Trump and I wrote two books together because we're concerned about the lack of financial education in our school systems. So you think about the source of it. If there's no financial education in our school systems, then the people running our government are idiots.
Gee, I wonder.
Well, like people say, well, the Federal Reserve Bank has either 400 or 4,000 PhDs. My mind goes, that's 4,000 or 4, like my poor dads. They're academic geniuses who know jack about money, and they're killing us. So when I see that, and then you have my generation was the first baby boom generation, was the first generation without a defined benefit pension plan. Defined benefit was like, when my father generation. They worked for Ford or General Motors, and they had a pension for life. But in 1974, that changed. So they shifted to the 401k and IRA, RRSP in Canada, 401k in Japan. So the boomer generation is kind of hanging out there on a string right now. And now we're starting to retire. So that was 74 to now, and how many years that is. But the boomer generation had the easiest time in all history. The economy boomed.
Yeah.
But now it's about to shift. And I am afraid the boomer generation might be, out of luck.
All right, I'll keep this quick. If you like what you're hearing and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our new content as it comes out every week. And now, back to the conversation.
One of the things that I feel like isn't really getting talked about is that I mean, some people are talking about our demographics shifting, but we do have this pending sort of financial catastrophe,
Yeah.
which is where it seems like worldwide, we've never been in a
Yes.
place where there's so few workers, young people, for so many
Old guy.
old people.
Yeah.
How do you think about what that means for all of us?
Well, that's kind of my shared concern. I don't know what's going to happen, but something has to happen. That old saying is, how'd you go bankrupt? Slowly and then fast. Well, the speed's about to go fast right now, all over the world. You look at Japan. When I was a kid, they were the miracle of Japan. Well, now their yen is worth nothing. And, Japanese aren't the brightest when it comes to money. I'm Japanese. I say that. Fourth generation American Japanese. I mean, they print more money than we do. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So if our school systems teach us nothing about money, then we have idiots running the show.
What is the most important basic fact of, financial literacy that people don't know or don't understand at all? Like, if there's a top confusion or ignorance, what would that be, and help our viewers sort of understand?
Well, that's all I did in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My
Yeah.
poor dad was the head of education, the state of Hawaii, PhD. He did studies at Stanford, Northwestern, University of Chicago. And but he was poor as a church mouse, but he held up his PhD. I said, yeah, that and $25 will buy you a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? What good is a PhD? And they get so many people get so attached to a stupid piece of paper. And so my rich dad was my best friend's father, never had an education. And he always said, my banker has never asked me for my report card yet. So what does your banker want to see? So these idiot left-wing academic types that go, I went to Stanford. And my banker wants to see my financial statement. My poor dad had no idea what a financial statement is. Most academics have no idea. They don't have financial statements. But to be a capitalist, I run on my financial statement, because 1971, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard and the US dollar became debt. So today, if we stop borrowing money, the economy collapses. It's because it's debt. So when this guy, Dave Ramsey is kind of a friend of mine, but we argue with different points of view. He says live debt free. I said, if we live debt free, the economy would collapse. Oh, no, it wouldn't, does it? Well, if you study macroeconomics, if we don't borrow, money is created by borrowing money, not working for it anymore. So if you can understand that macro concept, and then today America is now printing, this is 2024, we just started printing $1 trillion every 90 days to keep this economy floating. Now, when they stop, that's like Noah's Ark going down, on top of the mountain.
I first started getting into these kinds of issues about 15 years ago, because the financial crisis of 2008 happened, and I was a young dad, and I had my first mortgage.
Yeah.
And I suddenly, for the first time in my life, was thinking about interest rates, which
Yeah.
no one had told me about or talked about. It wasn't a thing that you encountered in your education. We're now to a place where interest rates have gone up, but in the bigger sweep of recent American history, they're still pretty low. They're lower than my parents had to pay with their first house, where it was like interest rates are 20%. How do you think about sort of that landscape, the landscape for interest rates and home ownership?
Well, I'm kind of on all coins have three sides: heads, tails, and the edge. So you have Republicans, Democrat, but I stand on the edge, look at both sides. And you have right and left and all this stuff. So when I look at money, you have to see what's invisible. You have to see the other side. And so when the 2008 market hit, like I said, money was debt. What the banks were doing was they were borrowing money and then packaging debt as an asset so they could borrow more money. They're called derivatives. And the average American, since they're financially illiterate, they don't speak the language of money. When I speak a derivative, that's like if you get an orange, you cut it, you squeeze it. The orange juice is a derivative of the orange. So what a derivative is in 2008 was a derivative of debt made into bigger debt. So the debt accelerated. So Warren Buffett has called derivatives weapons of mass financial destruction. So I'm sitting there like this, watching it. 2008 comes, it blew. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you. Because when you see the other side, I got more. I made more money in the crash than I did when it was going up. So the average person, because they don't have financial literacy, definition of words, and they're taught to just work for money, they don't see the other side. They cannot see what they cannot see. So when the markets crashed in 2008, I borrowed $300 million.
You borrowed $300 million. Now,
And I bought the best real estate in the world for pennies on a dollar. That's how you get rich. Not by working hard and putting in a stupid 401k full of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. Those are for the peasants. Jeez. No, you know what I mean? Well, that's what they tell the kids. Go to school, get a job, work hard, and put your money in a 401k or an IRA full of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I don't touch that garbage. It's trash. But you don't know if you don't know, right?
Well, so this is one of the things in your book, right? It's the concept of investing in assets and understanding the difference between an asset and a liability.
Definition.
So for the financially yet to be literate, what are those concepts and why are they so important?
Again, all coins have three sides: heads, tails, and the edge. Got to see the other side. So for there to be an asset, there has to be a liability by definition. If you understand that one, you'll say, okay, so here's the asset. What's the liability?
Give me an example.
Well, I wouldn't touch a mutual fund. You know, that's toxic. But the liability is the BlackRocks or the fund managers who package that stuff. All coins have three sides. I'm on the other side. I package it. That's why Buffett called, derivatives weapons of mass financial destruction. I package that debt. And that's how I make my money. So I know what those guys who are like BlackRock and all these guys, the mutual fund, the Vanguard, they're just packaging garbage and selling it. I wouldn't touch it.
What should the average person do with their savings right now from your perspective? Like in broad strokes, not some particular asset class or something, but what like if I have savings that I can put somewhere, what's a good strategy for me?
Well, you better study. A village idiot and their money are soon gone. They all disappear. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's the #1 book in the world for 27 years. And I flunked out of school because I can't write. And the publishers of New York, like Simon & Schuster, they all turned Rich Dad, Poor Dad down. They said, because they're like my poor dad, these academics are the worst people on planet Earth. Because they have this stupid piece of paper that says, you're smarter than that guy over there. I used to say, my poor dad, it's a piece of paper. Show me your financials. Oh, I got my PhD. If you can understand the insanity of that somebody actually thinking their PhD makes them smarter than the village idiot out there. If you can understand that insanity. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with this whole thing. But that's why Trump and I are good friends, because we sit there and laugh and chuckle. When he was debating Hillary, that criminal, Biden, Jesus Christ. Well, they are. They are.
You're not wrong.
Well, when Hillary says, and he doesn't pay any taxes, and Trump says, that means I'm smart. I don't pay taxes. Only idiots pay taxes.
You're making a lot of friends with this stuff.
Oh, my poor dad hung on to his PhD. I'm going, you're broke, you're working hard, you pay taxes, and you're saving dollars, and they're printing dollars. But I have a PhD. My other friend has a real estate license. He says, I have a real estate license. You don't. I said, yeah, because I don't want. I have a real estate license. I think I'm doing my best for your audience to show the insanity of our public today. They think a lousy piece of paper like the dollar bill is important. Well, it's a piece of paper. It's a derivative.
If those things aren't important, what is?
Assets. So in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said there's 3 main rules. The rich don't work for money. What I do as a capitalist is I create assets. So I take debt, all this, I assemble, I put a piece of real estate together or business, or like right now I'm up in northern Canada buying lithium fields. We're going to crush lithium for batteries, EV batteries and batteries. So we create assets. And so that asset pays money. So every month, I have 1,600 rental units. Every month, 1,600 people who would probably went to school pay me rent. God bless them. And guess what? Because they're paying me and my properties are 100% debt, I pay no taxes. That's why Trump says I'm smart. But the average person says, well, I pay more taxes than you. I said, well, you're an idiot. No, if you understand tax law, America was founded as a tax revolt. 1773, it was a thing called the Boston Tea Party. We don't want to pay taxes. But if you read Karl Marx in his book, The Communist Manifesto, taxes are essential for the spread of communism. My poor dad was also head of the labor union. What did Marx say about labor unions? Workers of the world unite. You understand
You're getting back to the basics here. This is great.
But I understand this stuff. That's literacy, you know? So anyway, rich don't work for money. I create assets. We don't save money, and your house is not an asset. So the average poor person, went to college like my dad, PhDs, go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and you buy a house because your house is your biggest asset. That is the dark side of the coin, but it's the light side for the idiots. They're doing what they think is smart. And the guys on my side, like Trump's side, going, I wouldn't do that. But you can't tell them that because they got this stupid piece of paper. Says, you're smart. My dad says, I'm smarter than your rich dad. I said, yeah, you're also broke.
So this is a radical thing for people to hear that haven't read your book. The idea that your home is
Radical.
an asset. I mean, I think this is the largest asset on most people's personal portfolio, personal balance sheet.
Their home.
Is their home, right? So
But
how is your home not an asset?
because you have to understand cash flow. Two most important words. If you read financials, that's what your banker wants to see. Your banker wants to see a financial, not your GPA, not your report card, not your college degree. They want to see assets, liabilities, and cash flow. So there's three basic parts to a financial statement: income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. You can teach a monkey that, but our schools don't teach that.
It is shocking that still to this day, a high school graduate will not encounter those three ideas.
Because they're taught by Marxists. No, they are.
You and
Please-
I agree on that.
No, I don't mean they're bad people. Please hear me wrong. This one good. This is a ring. I'm called a ring knocker. There's 5 federal academies: West Point, Naval Academy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Kings Point. I went to Kings Point in New York. The first book we're required to read is the Communist Manifesto.
Really?
Yes, 1965, I'm reading the Communist Manifesto going, because it was economics. That's real economics, not that bullshit they teach you in school. Econ 101 and econ. No, it's communism versus capitalism. Adam Smith versus Karl Marx. It's basic, but our academics are idiots. They got this piece of stupid paper that says you got a PhD, and going, good, pay me my rent, I'll be happy.
So when you encounter a student who is under the throes of belief that communism is the future and that, oh, look, capitalism has failed for whatever reason, what do you say to them?
Got to study a little bit more. I'm not saying I'm not saying being a Marxist is bad, because my economics teacher was a West Point graduate, U.S. military school. I went to military school. He was a West Point graduate. He flew B-17s in World War II. Got shot down, captured, escaped, all that stuff. And he says, economics is like a religion. So you could be Catholic, you could be Hindu, you could be Jewish, could be Buddhist. So economics is like an economic religion. And he says, some Marxists believe in this religion, capitalists believe in this religion. So I'm reading the Communist Manifesto, 1965. My family are Marxist. And my dad headed the teachers union. Can you imagine that? And that's what Marx said: labor workers of the world unite, form unions. And so I worked for my rich dad one time during a union, because my rich dad was the exact opposite of my poor dad. Rich dad was a capitalist. And his workers went on strike. So rich dad called me up and he says, come help us out. So I went down to his hotels. He owned hotels. And I'm working behind the desk. So I'm out there for like 3 or 4 days because, there's no workers. Workers are on strike and all this stuff. They were voting for unionism. That's what the workers were on strike for. I got home and my poor dad said, where have you been? I said, I called home every night. He said, I know, but where have you been? I said, I was working. He says, you're a scab. You broke the union lines. It was the end of my relationship with my dad. He says, you're a scab. I went, but Dad, I was just helping this guy out. No. You should have let those guys strike against him. That's the number one rule of Marxism: abolition of private property.
Yeah,
If you
that
just read the books, you know what I mean?
I did a recent video about a couple videos about Marxism, and I think that is essentially what I understand to be the simplest definition is the abolition of private property is communism.
Yes. But how you get there is that, workers of the world unite, go up against them, strike, take their money. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that was my father.
It's a hard environment to try to understand which assets to buy. So is there a wit and how to get your first step on the ladder? Like I think it's easy for people to think about, well, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to enter this field. I'm going to get whatever entry level opportunity and work my way up. What's the equivalent in the asset world for that first rung of the ladder?
Well, again, it's financial literacy. It's simply the definition. An asset puts money in your pocket, whether you work or not. So a 401k is a liability because it's taking money from your pocket. And these village idiots, academic types, I have a 401k. Okay, you're an idiot because it's taking money from your pocket. You're giving it to guys like me, the capitalist. You just look at cash flow. There's three things: income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. I created a board game called Cash Flow. That's the only game that teaches accounting, having fun. So there's income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. And the reason I created it was Maria Montessori, one of the great educational entrepreneurs of all times. She says, what the hand does, the mind remembers. So how did I get rich? Was I played Monopoly.
What was the first asset you bought in this journey for yourself?
That was a challenge. The first asset was my challenge was I couldn't pay anything for it. I had to get it for free. So I had to use debt to buy it. So my rich dad was a great guy, man. He was a son of a. So you go buy your first piece of real estate in Hawaii, and Hawaii real estate's expensive. So I bought a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo on the beach, and I bought it with my credit card.
Wow.
100% debt financing. That's the secret to success. So when Dave Ramsey said live debt free, I said, well, that's your philosophy. It's not mine. Again, there's always three sides to a coin. On the light side, all the idiots saying, I'm debt free. On the dark side, you guys are idiots. I want debt. Always three sides. There's no such thing as a one-sided coin.
So one of the things that's hard to try to think about that is, especially with real estate, is real estate prices go like this. So depending on where we are in this boom and bust cycle, you might be taking out a lot of debt on an asset that turns around and ends up losing quite a bit of its value.
I didn't say be stupid.
Well, but it's easy to say that after the fact. How do you know?
When do people buy? When does a village idiot buy real estate?
At the top.
Oh, prices are going up. I better jump in. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. The village idiots are running in there. It's like right now, they're all running into Bitcoin and stuff like this. The stock market today, all-time highs. Idiots are just jumping in like lemmings going to die.
So talk about the emotional control that people need to have to be able to do this kind of thing.
Very good question. The human body is made up of 4 different types. You have the mind, you have the body. So there's mental intelligence, physical intelligence, there's spiritual intelligence, and emotional intelligence, EQ. And the average person has no EQ, very low spiritual intelligence. The reason I know that is I was a Marine, went to Vietnam twice, is being mentally intelligent, physically, spiritually, emotionally. When you see your friends dying, it's really, really imperative you remain stoic, calm, and you keep killing the other guy. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's hard stuff. Most people don't know what that's about.
No. And then when I came back from Vietnam the second time in 72, I got hit by a rotten egg and spit on by all these hippies from Woodstock, you know. And today I see them around. I see them in politics today. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. They're all those hippies out there spitting on me. I'm only kidding, you know.
I don't think you're kidding.
No,
I think that's not a
no, I see. I mean, I'm boomer. My question I ask a lot of guys my age is, and what did you do during Vietnam? Well, I had a student interment. Oh, okay, I know who you are now. Or I was in Canada. I said, oh, good. Dodged it.
So do we have to be the absolute killers to be able to weather the financial storms?
No, I didn't
help,
say that.
Yeah, help me
I
navigate.
said it's four intelligences: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. You look at a guy like Tiger Woods. He's got mental, emotional, physical, spiritual lined up. That putt, you know, let's say he's putting 10 feet to win $1 million. It's mental, spiritual. It's going to, and that's why Maria Montessori school system says, what the hand does, the mind remembers. It's physical intelligence that's more important than mental intelligence.
My son spent most of his K through 12 in Montessori style schools, and I'm a
Good.
big fan. But I hadn't heard that phrase. That's a really powerful phrase. What the hand does, the mind remembers. I feel like so much of our education system is purely abstract and not physical. It's the exact
It's
opposite.
emotional. They punish you for making mistakes. How stupid is that? So you have so many people that say, but what if I make a mistake? I said, you'll get smarter. You know, a baby doesn't learn to walk unless it falls down. But let's say the baby stands up, falls down, teacher goes, you stupid kid, you can't walk. They'll never walk. So when I meet people who are the academic types of that piece of paper that means nothing, most of them are so terrified of making mistakes. I said, what you do is so risky. Well, risk involves mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And our schools make you, they do. I got a piece of paper. I said, that means you're an idiot. You know, show me your financials. You know, my license plate on my car, I have a V12 Bentley. And I do have an EV also. But the V12 says 1.9 GPA. I go down the streets.
There is, I mean, there is a resentment in academia towards
The rich.
the rich, but also there's a kind of, and this goes back a long time. There's a sort of like the merchant class has always been reviled by
Yes,
the
you
elite.
got it. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? It seems almost like a deeply human quality, because it's not just here in America, it's throughout history.
Well, we have different values, you know what I mean? We all have different values. So for the academic types who are generally, you know, in school, I used to call them nerds. I was a surfer. You know,
Hey, Robert, I was a nerd. Back
Okay.
off.
the surfers were cool, you know. I was flunking out of school, but we were cool. And they said, they're going, well, I'm going to go to good school. I said, good, I'm going to be surfing. It's just values. I still got into Naval Academy. I'm not stupid, but I'm also not that naive. So to go to military school, you have to be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual.
You know, in America, we lead the world in fatherlessness. 1 in
In what?
4 in fatherlessness.
Yes.
1 in 4
Thank you for saying that.
students, 1 in 4 kids are living in a home without a biological step or adoptive father. You had 2 dads. You
Yes.
had your biological dad, poor dad with his PhD, and rich dad,
Yes.
a mentor, friend. So you were rich. You were doubly rich on that
Yes.
score.
Thank you.
What do you say?
But that's why your program is perfect name.
It's a big part of why we do it.
Yes. Fathers are not carrying the load today. I meet so many young women today who say, I can't find a man. You know, they're TikTok dancers now.
You're boomering up here, Robert.
You know, Marines have an attitude problem.
But what is your advice for young men who don't have the benefit of having a dad to impart these things? obviously you're out there, you've been out there for a long time preaching this gospel. But if I'm a young man and I'm stuck,
That's a great question.
what should my body do first so that my
That's
mind
a
can
very
open
good
up?
question. Because when I realized this is what happened, I grew up in Hawaii. My father's head of education. On one side of the street is a schools, the elementary school for labor union kids. It was called Union School. So the kids that went there were union members. Their fathers were either Portuguese, Filipino, Chinese, Korean, like that. Directly, less than 20 yards across the street was Riverside School, the school for the rich kids. So their fathers owned the plantations that the union kids worked for. I talk about a cycle farm. I'm going. So for some reason, my father didn't cheat, but I got into the rich kids' school. So I'm sitting there for the first time, 9 years old, going, how come they're poor, we're rich? These guys are, what's the difference? That was the question. So then I'm in Sunday school and flunking out of Sunday school too. I'm sitting like this, and the teacher says, why were the 3 wise men wise? I raised my hand and said, she goes, why? Because they were rich. She goes, and in church, the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
So when I
But
said,
it is the love of money. It's not money. People make that mistake.
I understand,
Yeah,
but it's their
yeah.
cop out for being poor. I all know the game. I'm not idiot. So I sat there going, she goes, so I said, she said, why do you think they're rich? I said, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, that costs money. And she goes, how do you know that? I said, well, I study money. I do study money. And she goes, that didn't make them rich. I said, well, what did? And then she said the magic words. They sought the best teacher. So in, Christians, Jesus Christ. Buddhism, it's Buddha. And I went, so my job as a kid is to seek the best teacher? She goes, yes. And so I'm in a rich kids' school across the street of the union kids, laborers' kids. And I went looking for a teacher. And that's when I found my rich dad. It was my best friend's father in the same school.
One of the things
So please hear me. Seek your teachers. And YouTube and what you guys are doing, you're giving the world access to millions of teachers. So I think YouTube's good and bad to it. But seek out the best teachers.
one of the things for a lot, and I have a 19-year-old son, and he's doing great, but his peers, a lot of them, when they do that, they say, okay, I don't believe the nonsense I'm being told. I'm being told I'm toxic and this and that, communism. And I'm like, I don't like any of that. So they go online and they encounter characters like Andrew Tate and others who are essentially pitching them. It's not all bad what they say. Some of it's helpful, but some of it's just kind of get rich quick scam artistry.
Correct.
How should someone recognize when that's what's going on? Because if you don't have that knowledge and you're looking for your first teacher and they turn out to be some Ponzi scheme bozo, you might not know that they're a Ponzi scheme bozo. Oh, they got a Bugatti. They're like the 3 wise men, but just with Bugattis and harems and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like a demonic 3
Well, it's
wise men.
pretty. If it's too good to be true, it's probably fake, But the best podcast I've ever done, one of those get rich quick guys came on my show. He was hoping that my audience, would infiltrate his audience and all that stuff. And he was giving what I thought was the worst advice. And he's pretty famous to this day. He's still up there. I took him on, said, you SOB. I chewed him out. And I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever done. And to this day, people come up to me and say, that was the best podcast ever because I took him on.
What's your definition of leadership?
You should be able to unite and focus a group. Kings Point, the school I went to, #1 school in leadership. The first word we learned at Kings Point, mission. Mission is spiritual. What are you here to do? Then your job as a leader is to unite and focus that energy.
I've run small businesses for a little over a decade, and this has been maybe the biggest lesson I've learned over that time is having a vision and mission. If you're trying to lead an organization, ends up being the most important thing you end up doing.
Your job is unite in spirit. So, that's why I say when I came back from Vietnam, I got spit on and hit by rotten eggs. And they just didn't see, they say we called us killers, which we did. But when your friend doesn't come home, we're a carrier. And we're sitting there and go, what happened to him? I said, did you see him go down? I said, no, we didn't see him go down. They don't come back. It's the most empty feeling. So there was so many nights I'll be on my carrier, I'll be sitting on the bow of the ship, and that's when you get closer to God. You go, why am I still here? Why is he gone? So the Vietnam Wall was a good thing in D.C. I go there and I would say goodbye to my friends. But then to come home and get spit on, hit with rotten eggs, my commanding officer said it the best. He said, gentlemen, we fought for the right for them to do that to us. What? That's freedom of expression. We fought for that right. That's spirit. That's mission. That's leadership. We could have just broke out our guns and shot them all there, which wouldn't be too politically correct.
No,
But
that would be
we just said,
sociopathic.
yeah, crossed my mind though, I said, I shot better people than you. But I'm walking, get hit with eggs and spit on and called a baby killer. And one of my best friends, Robbie, never came back, so it took me going to the wall to say goodbye.
What do you say to those who believe that your generation has really screwed things up for our kids? I don't know that I believe this, like, oh, the boomers wrecked America, but it's certainly something that people say. What's your response to that?
Well, there's some truth to it. I'm not denying it. But if you study money, this has happened every time we print money. So, I'm a student of money. I don't know why. That was my only interest. There wasn't a class called money at school. I just studied it on my own.
Just a greedy bastard from
Yeah,
an early age.
Yeah. But when you print money, two things happen. And so Nixon was the guy that printed money,
Yeah.
first guy. And it was from the Bretton Woods, all the history. Look at how they came up. Every time they printed money, there's been war.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it brought
The greenback in the Civil War,
Yeah, it brought
1920s.
the Weimar Republic. It brought Hitler to power.
Yes.
I was in Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe went down. But when you study money, every time you print money, two things happen. The rich get richer. Poor middle class get poorer. And the reason for that is when you print money, so-called assets of value go up. But also expenses for food and things go up. So when you see homelessness increasing, the more we print money, more homelessness, because they can't afford the house.
This has been a really interesting thing that's happened that's in America right now, which is we had this crazy acceleration in the price of housing, and interest rates collapsed so that you could get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage below 3%. And now that's all been started to be turned upside down. And it's created a really weird moment where interest rates are high, prices have gone up, the housing market hasn't crashed.
Inflation has gone up.
So it's as I've been more of a student of like basic macroeconomics than finance. I'm like behind in finance, frankly. I mean, not at the basic level we're talking about, but where do we go from here? What's your sense of how the next several years is going to play out?
Okay, so you are odd. The price of housing went up, but inflation went up.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. If you're making less than $100,000 a year, how do you afford a house?
Can't.
Because you go to the supermarket and you cash is sucked out of there on the expense column. But that's why there's no financial education in our schools. They don't have to teach you that stuff. They got some guy with a PhD in a paper and go. So that's the problem. And another thing I was taught at the academy, because of ring knockers, you watch what a person does, not what they say. So that's why I observe people. So this guy Biden, not Republican or Democrat, but his first act was, you know what it was? His very first act.
The student loans, wasn't that, or no?
No, that was Obama.
Oh,
Another criminal. But anyway, no, it's
you're not wrong.
well, it's,
Is assassinating American citizens around the world. He's technically a criminal.
yeah. Now, when he cut his first act was to cut the Keystone XL pipeline, and I went to Kings Point. Okay, I'm an oil man. My first job was with Standard Oil. I understand oil. When he cut the pipeline, I own oil wells. And the moment he cut the pipeline that day, oil went under Trump. I was selling oil for $30 a barrel. Next day was 130. So that's what.
So he lined your pockets with that.
I almost voted for Biden after that one. Trump kept the prices down. And so the 130, I'm making money hand over fist, but I knew exactly what he was doing because that's what Marxist guys did. By raising the cost of living or inflation, you now have two classes. So what Biden did was he created another class called the upper middle class became poor. He did it intentionally. I watched that going, God, Whitey. And then, so you notice what's happened, and then you see homelessness increase and all this stuff. It's intentional. And that's what Trump was fighting, the deep state or the dark side, or whatever he was fighting. So when you see that stuff, I go, wow. His second step was to open the border. Watch what a person does, not what they say. So Trump was putting up a wall. I know people hate Trump. He's a good friend of mine. He was putting a wall up so we had some protection. Biden took it down. Watch what a person does, not what they say. But people can't hear what Biden's doing because they hate Trump so much.
Well, Trump's really made it hard in that he often sounds like a crazy person. So if you're inclined to listen to what people say versus what they do, Trump doesn't make it easy to judge him on that basis.
Oh, he makes sense to me. No, it's, he's really, I know him for his sons and I'm really good for that.
I actually, throughout college, I waited tables at Trump Arena. So I actually technically was a Trump employee during my college years.
Good.
I asked this question of every guest. We call this Dad Saves America because I think dads are the role we get to inhabit as men that makes the biggest difference in our society.
Amen.
How do you understand your role in the American story?
That's a really good question, because I'll say it again. I flunked out of school because I can't write. Then I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And every publisher, because they like my poor dads, they turned my book down saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You say, you think you know money, but they think they know money. They have a 401k, that's why, full of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. I wouldn't touch that stuff. So I had to self-publish Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I put the books in my friend's car wash in Austin, Texas, because nobody would buy them. I published them and said, now what do I do? And it was in this car wash. And then my friend said, they're not selling. I said, well, they don't. Give me some time. Finally, the book sold. And then I got a phone call from Dallas, Texas. This is Austin to the car wash, Dallas.
Yeah.
I said, hey, my name's Bill Galvin. I said, how you doing, Bill? He says, I bought your book. I said, good, it's a good book. And he said, how many you got? I said, 1,000 minus 12. And he goes, I'll take the rest. And I went, who are you? So I made a mistake. Who are you? He says, I work for Amway. And I was very close-minded to Amway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't. And because of Amway, my book went all over the world.
Oh, so they put it out through their network.
But it was a different system. See, businesses are systems. This is a system, And then Oprah called. And the next thing you know, I'm going, who's Oprah? Because, Marines don't watch Oprah. I wasn't going to go on the program. My wife grabbed me. She says, look, you stupid SOB. You're going on Oprah. I said, oh, okay. So I fly to Chicago. I go on the Oprah show. Next thing, I'm famous. And then Trump called. So I wish I could say it was my brilliant marketing. It wasn't. So long answer, what I'm doing today, I'm going to start a network marketing system to teach capitalism throughout the world.
We need
That's
it
how
now
you
more
learn
than ever.
from your mistakes.
Robert, thanks for being on Dad Saves America.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
I appreciate that.